Last weekend, this week, if you will.
But he came in yesterday morning, he said, I want to they were going on, they put their bought into it.
Yeah.
So hopefully it stays.
That's good.
Like I said, they said too.
So he has orders to relate it.
I'm not as worried about it. In the one
Okay. I've been asked a question, what if I don't plan to take the PMP exam? So let me throw that out to you guys and get it on the table. The guidance that I was given early on is that there are a group of you that are interested in taking the test. So therefore we've done this practical project management thing, but really put an emphasis on, if you're going to take the test, here's some more stuff, here's some more stuff. So just to help calibrate me, how many of you think you're going to take the test at the end of this? So I can. Okay, so
Rod, these are your good students.
so while Dr. Sony's looking, how many plan to take the test?
There you go. Yeah, good job, good job.
Okay, so now that he's gone. Okay, so it still looks like nominally half, maybe a little bit more than half. I will calibrate myself based on that then, and for the rest of the semester, I'll move a little bit more toward the practical stuff, and still continue to point at the if you're going to take the test, if you're going to take the test. The other thing, I talked to Tony about coming at the end of the semester and doing a session for those of you that want to take the test. He's got a really good module on test-taking strategies and studying strategies, and can point you to some really good stuff. So he's agreed to do that at the end, and then obviously we'll make that elective or volunteer for those of you that want to take the test. You can come do that.
Kind of explain what the test is and what the format is, and how, because right now it's an unknown. I don't have a clue.
Yeah, and he'll go over this too. It is a multiple choice test. It's a 4-hour test now, and I say multiple choice, but you will have to work some problems and select the answer from the multiple choice. It's based on everything in the PMBOK, and there's no, you don't do a section, then a section, then a section. One of the things that we are seeing is that they're moving more towards scenario-based testing. So you'll have a scenario, and then you may have multiple questions on that scenario, where in the past, let's say 2 years ago, there was a real emphasis on the definitions. So we were recommending to people spend time with the definitions and really focus on that. Well, what we've done over the last couple of years is, after people have taken it, we've asked them to give us feedback. Based on the teaching that we did, the prep that we did, what did you find useful? What did you see in the test? Obviously, we're not asking people to give us specific questions or anything like that, but more toward the format and the kinds of things that they see.
Are you allowed to bring materials, or just straight up? Nope. Right out of your
Just
head?
you and a pencil, and you can bring a calculator. No, in fact, I don't think they'll bring a calculator anymore. You use the one on the computer now. So, and I have had people tell me they actually had to pull their pockets out. I don't have anything with me. If you go to take a break to go to the restroom or whatever, you have to check in there, and so it's pretty controlled, pretty structured, very structured. And like I say, when we do that session, he'll go over some very specifics on how do you register, how do you fill out your capabilities, and validate your experience and so forth. So you have to have so many hours of project management experience, and then you have to validate that you have what experience you have in what areas. But you do not have to be an acting project manager or have project management as your title or experience to take the test, because you have to validate your project management experience. So. Any other feedback from last week? I understand it was pretty hot.
He did a good job.
Did he? Okay. Any feedback you've got, I appreciate it. He wants it, obviously, and Tony really does emphasize the test taking stuff. I mean, he's got the body of knowledge, an amazing memory of what's in what, and how it all works together. So, but any feedback you have, positive or negative, constructive criticism, we appreciate it, and I'll make sure that he gets that too. So, if you want to say that personally or send me a note, that's good too. We want to get better. Okay, I think we have potentially a couple of book reports today. Is that correct? You're doing one today. Somebody else? All right. Anybody else? Are you ready today? All right, great. Let's do that. Your 3-minute timer is on, so you want to go first? Ready, set, go. No.
No, I'm second. Oh, no. We're gonna start over.
Take a breath. I'm only kidding.
Okay, so I did a report or read over Daniel Pink's book, A Whole New Mind. So I'm going to start with a kind of hokey statement here that this book actually changed my life. Insofar as that it's changed the guidance that I will give my children for their career advancements and personal fulfillment. So I do, right off the bat, I do recommend it. So I'm going to tell you a story here, though. Oh, by the way, so that's like, be an exotic dancer, not an engineer. No, just kidding. Okay, but I'm going to tell you a story. I have a chemistry degree, Bachelor of Science chemistry degree. And organic chemistry is one of those subjects that a lot of people hate. And I nailed it. And the reason I did is, I know, I'm sorry, this is breaking, but it's because I actually saw that molecule. And I saw that strong nucleophile coming in with a backside attack and pushing out that weak nucleophile. And I was able to 3D image that and how that changed the structure, how that changed the positioning and the chemistry of that. I didn't just memorize, I understood the whole thing. And even if you have to memorize, then go ahead and memorize the relationships between your entities instead of the entities themselves. And that is the premise of Daniel Pink's book, is being able to apply those big picture, simultaneous pattern recognitions of the right brain to our logical, rational, you're supposed to be getting married right now, left brain worlds. So mainly change our perspective to solve the problems of today with the solutions of tomorrow. And you could be thinking, like, why should I care, right? So, and he definitely goes into detail in this in a very rational way for all of the left brainers. And that's the 3 A's: abundance, automation, and Asia. So abundance, nowadays we have tons of data, choices, and stuff galore. And everybody's just trying to find the meaning in their lives. That's right brain. Automation, since the 1990s, computers have overtaken the sequential left brain minds of humans. The best of the brains cannot compete with how fast are the processing times of computers. Asia. India, at the time this book was written, is producing 350,000 engineering graduates from one university per year. And then you have the Philippines, you have China. These white-collar jobs, they get paid about 1/5 of what we do, and they're still getting paid 5 times more than their partners, their non-high-tech partners or other people in the country. So our white-collar jobs are now being shipped off seas, just like our blue-collar jobs of the yesteryear, where factory jobs were shipped off seas. So this is why we need to start caring about what we can do more to keep that competitiveness. And exactly that's why we're here, right? Because we're systems engineers, we're project managers. We take the big picture and apply it to be able to muck through those details and find out what's important that's going to change that big picture in our mission, right, their goal. So the takeaway I found was that the left hemisphere defines us from animals. It's our logic. Our right hemisphere defines us from computers, because there is no computer that can keep up with the simultaneous facial recognition like a human can, or a toddler, right? And that the whole brain is what makes us human. And then being able to work these two hemispheres together is what will prepare us for the conceptual age, going from the industrial, the information, to conceptual age of tomorrow.
so think like a toddler. There's your takeaway for today. I do recommend this book, and I think you said you recommend it also, especially if you are a list-making left-brainer, which many of us are in this world. This causes us to look at what's going on from a little bit different perspective, or a lot different perspective. Is somebody else doing Daniel Pink's other book? Okay, good. Drive, you're doing Drive? Okay, I have a video for Drive that I plan to use in one of the sessions. So if you would like to YouTube that and use that, it's about 10 minutes long instead of 3, but since I'm going to share it anyway, or plan to share it, and you want to do that, that'd be fine. Okay, all righty. Are you ready?
Sure.
Fire away. And you're going to send me your written report, right? You're going to send me your written report.
All right, so I had a book called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, and when I read the title, the first thing that I thought of was that there's only 5, so like there has to be more. Secondly, I thought it was going to be a book that was just going to be this big long list of listing out all the 5s, and it's like 200 and something pages long. But the surprising part was it took him 186 pages before he ever listed the first of the 5 dysfunctions. And so I started reading it and thought, why in the world would he ever do this? But he basically took a fictional story of a startup tech company and took you inside their meeting room and situationally walked through all the different dysfunctions that the team would have. And then at the end, he went back and showed you the examples of how they actually applicably applied. So I thought it was a very good book that was less technical than expected. It was an easy read. It was something that anybody can follow. So just to sum it up, I'm not going to bore you with the story details, but the 5 dysfunctions are absence of trust, a fear of conflict, a lack of commitment, an avoidance of accountability, and inattention to results. And one of the...
Pause for a second. Read those again now, because I know none of us listen to that list, did you? Right? He's going to name the list. Da, 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 da. If I'd asked you, can you name one of them, who could? Oh, good.
Absence of accountability.
All right, good. All right, let's give us the list again, because now we're going to pay attention.
It's an absence of trust, fear of conflict, lack of commitment, avoidance of accountability, and inattention to results. I think everybody's, when you break it down into those categories, we've all faced that. But the one quote within the book that really stuck with me, it actually takes place in the first CEO, the new CEO's board meeting. And she walks in and says that our company has more experience and talent executive team than any of our competitors. We have more money than they do, better core technology than they do, and have more powerful board of directors. And in spite of all that, we're behind all of our competitors in terms of revenue and growth. Can anyone explain this? That's the premise, and I kind of took and realized that a lot of the teams that I've been a part of have the best people, the most resources, the most potential, but they don't ever seem to succeed or live up to that. And so that walking through the 5 dysfunctions of how not being able to trust your person that you're on a team with, or not wanting to confront that person, or not holding that person accountable. The different dysfunctions play a major role in breaking down our teams. And to tie it back to the PMBOK, they have a whole entire section on human resources management, and it kind of gives you the intangibles, because human resources management you can spend a lot of time on. You don't always necessarily see it increase your profits, or you don't see a physical change of your project, but it gives you the intangibles to be able to have people working toward a common goal. So I think this book really is a quick and easy read. It breaks down some of the basic dysfunctions, and it just gives you a premise of what to look for when you're having that interpersonal relationships, and being able to help manage people and understanding why people behave in a certain way. So I would recommend it. It's quick and easy. It only took a couple hours to read. It was very well laid out, and it kind of gives you a break from the normal analytical books.
The author is?
Pat, I don't know how to say his last name. Patrick Licinoni? I don't know how to say his last name, but Patrick Licinoni. It's Lencioni.
There's several books out, but this is a
And it's a little bit older book too. I didn't realize that it's been out for a while, so it's not a newer.
Another thing about if you are a audiobooks kind of a person, this is a good book to listen to, because it is in the form of a story, and it will lead you right through to Oh, yeah, that's interesting. It's one of those things that it's almost, you think, well, that's kind of common knowledge, or, you know, that's something that we all know. And yeah, if it is, then why are we not using it? You know, why do we see? So any Yankees fans in here? Okay, well, Yankees are the team I think of when you think about teams that have pulled together the very best from wherever and, you know, finished third 3 years in a row. So, yeah, obviously, I'm not a Yankees fan, but I'm a Braves fan. So we finished last this year.
We do that to ourselves, though.
Yeah, that's right. All right, any questions? I do. If you're finished with that, I do.
Yeah, you know this, yeah.
Yeah, I've got this. Okay. Very good. Thank you very much. All right, fire away. Did everybody check in for last week and this week?
I read Good to Great, Why Some Companies Make the Leap and Others Don't. Unlike Matt, I didn't have to read 180 pages before it started getting into the examples. That was actually one of the things I liked about the book, was it gave comparisons between like Walgreens and another pharmacy, or Kroger's and another drugstore or superstore. The book identified the common behaviors and practices of companies that went from just good to great. And to do this, the companies had to sustain the production of good results. The author stated early on that a company must narrowly define their objective and focus all resources in that direction to become great. One of the examples that it gave about this was like Olympic swimmers. Well, you don't become an Olympic swimmer by focusing on swimming, basketball, football, and a bunch of different sports. You have to focus on what you're good at and try to grow in that. And oftentimes when companies fail to survive, it's because their objective was too broad. They try to get their hands on too many different projects, and it just doesn't work when they do that. They talked about the different types of managers. There's a scale, level 1 being the worst and level 5 being the best type of manager there is. And the level 5, one of the requirements for a level 5 manager was that they must be humble and have good professional will and be ambitious and realize that they don't have all the answers. If they pay attention to the people around them, that's what will take them to the next level. And another thing was the managers who were able to keep their employees for a long time tended to do better than the companies who had high rate of turnover. And it also talked about that gaining the trust of the people that work for you, that's another biggie. I know that there have been times in my career where a manager or something give a spiel to the group, and after the meeting's over, everybody just goes on, continue to do things the way that they have been, because they just don't buy into it. But the way to transition from good to great is to be patient, focus on your objective, and don't expect the transition to come overnight. Like I said in the beginning, it's the sustained production of great results that will lead a company to be great.
Do you recommend it?
Yeah, it was really good. Even if you don't want to read the whole thing, just if you can just read some of the examples, I got a lot from that.
And another thing about this book, similar to the 5 Dysfunction, is this is a fairly old book. There are a couple of other follow-on books to this one, but it's still my favorite in this group of books. And so as you read the examples, what you'll notice is some of those companies that they were talking about being great companies, we've seen them fall on some hard times, as you would expect, right? If it's not sustained, then it's not going to be sustainable. So is that my copy of that? Good deal. Thank you very much. All right, any questions or comments then? All right. Nobody even has a question about the midterm.
We will tomorrow.
Huh? You will tomorrow? Okay, so it's set up on Blackboard to be available to you guys tomorrow. Actually, I think sometime tonight. I wanted to wait and make sure we go through today. I'm probably going to make a couple of tweaks and a couple of changes based on the discussion I had with Tony and depending on what we get through today. I want to go through 6 and 7 today and at least walk through there and make sure we're on the same page relative to the organization and some of the content that I want to make sure we at least have a working knowledge of for the first half of the semester. So I think I gave you until
14.
Is that what it was, till the 14th? I'll have to look at the top of that and make sure that that's the date I put on the top of there. Is the 14th the following Friday?
2 weeks.
When you get back?
It's basically 2
Oh,
weeks.
yeah,
2
after
weeks.
the fall break, yeah.
Yeah,
We'll
so
have
there's fall break and then we'll have a class. I may have put a date on there earlier than that, and the 14th is fine. Here's the thing, if you get it back to me earlier, I'll get it graded and have something back to you on the 14th. If I get it on the 14th or 13th, or you won't have it on the 14th. But so that's up to you. But if you need that period of time, I don't think you're going to. I believe this is probably a 90-minute or so test. It's about a dozen, 12 or 14 multiple choice questions, and then about 10 kind of explain something to me questions. Here's a graphic, explain how this works, or show me that you have some understanding of what these concepts mean and how they work together. So again, I think 90 minutes, and if you'll sit down and do it, it's obviously it's open book because I'm not going to watch you do it. But if you've read the stuff that you were supposed to have read, you'll at least know where to go look for some things that I'm asking for. I think I emphasized last time. Let me say it again. If you're only going to read 2 chapters in Kersner, did I say that?
11 and 25.
11 and 25, right? You may have to look at some of the others. I recommend that, I don't remember what they are, 5, 6, 7. Those are really short. So, take the 2 minutes it takes to go through those. Or I'm exaggerating, obviously, but it won't take you much longer than that to read some of those chapters. But 11 and 25 will be helpful. And then the sets of slides. Has everybody now been able to access Blackboard? And okay, good. So back to the comment earlier about taking the test or not. If you plan to take the PMP exam at some point, you're going to want to download those slides and have those slides to use to prep for the test. That'll be a big help to you. Because the slides that I'm using, I've obviously gone through and cut out a bunch of stuff. And those slides have example problems in them. They have answer keys at the end of them, and some exercises and those kind of things that will help you prepare for the test. So use that information and go ahead and set it somewhere in a folder that you're going to use to prepare yourself for the test. All right. So last week you were focused on time management, right? The schedule. And Tony went through the whole, how do you get everything together so that you've planned it, defined it, sequenced activities. And again, just as a reminder, the way PMI has done this is they break it down into the little bitty bits and bytes that we talk about, and then everything's organized as a process. So we talk about inputs, outputs, tools, and techniques for that little piece. but with this understanding that all this stuff's interrelated. So there's not really a real situation where we as the project manager are going to be down at that super detailed of a level, doing absolutely all of this stuff. Now, I think Tony also pointed out to you, or I expect he did, I don't know that he did, but pointed out to you that in the project management world, we talk about this as if we all get to be that person sitting in that seat, and you have all these other resources for you that help you with the scheduling and with the estimating and with the monitoring and controlling and tracking and risk management and so forth and so on. The reality is, for most of us, we get to be the PM and fill one or two or three or four of those other roles. So we get to deal with risk management, personnel management, and contracting, and that's the world we live in. From the perspective of the test, assume you get to sit in that seat. And that's another thing that he'll go over with you is, for the test, here are some assumptions as you read questions and you talk about answering scenario kinds of questions. Assume these things are true, that face-to-face communication is always better, and responsibility belongs to the project manager primarily when things go bad. When things go good, then the credit goes to the team. And so there's some of those concepts that you want to make sure that you're comfortable with and know if they ask those kind of questions, what is it that they're looking for. Yes, I could. This, maybe. Okay. So last week you finished up with, now I've got a schedule, now we're going to control the schedule. So the point of controlling the schedule is really about monitoring against the plan, right? We're going to say we had all these activities, we talked to them about what we're going to do when, so there's a sequencing of the activities, and now we're going to talk about looking at that schedule and looking at what we actually performed and saying, how are we doing against the plan? And then making decisions about, do we need to make adjustments? Do we need to do something different? Do we, what's our path forward based on where we are and where we thought we were going to be? So that's the point of this process. Now, what can you tell me now, based on what you know about PMI's organization of this material, what do you know about this process from that graphic? Why is it a different color from those other 6?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which group is it?
Which what? What'd you say?
I said it was the final product of what you're trying to do.
Okay, in this section that's true, but why is it a different color?
The 5 columns on page
5
60.
columns are called
Process group.
process groups, right? Remember, it's okay to read it. I'm good with that.
61.
That's on page what? 61. Right? That graphic's going to be important to you. So this is part of the process group called monitoring and controlling. All these others come from what process group? Correct. Planning. So all of this relates to planning, and now we're monitoring and controlling. So that implies that we've got some execution stuff going on, right? Did you notice that we don't execute a schedule? There's nothing in here about executing a schedule, is there? And we're going to see that several times. We're going to have a baseline and we're going to measure against a baseline, but we're not executing the schedule. We're measuring and we're monitoring and controlling against the schedule. All right, so what I did, and I was happy to hear that several of you have already produced your schedule, and it looks something like this. This is our schedule for the carbon fiber commercialization work that we're doing. This is the top half, obviously. Here's the bottom half. So what can you, I said this is the schedule. What is this really?
Can't show it.
It's a Gantt chart that has on it what?
WBS.
It has tasks on it, which are the WBS. That's what all this stuff is over here. And then what's this?
Duration.
Durations. So what else is over here? Is it just durations?
Relationships.
The
Well, the
ties.
critical path is in here somewhere.
How the
That's
tasks
true.
are tied, the sequencing.
Okay, so there's something about sequencing in here. So having a graphic of the schedule, I have the task, I have something about duration, I have something about dependencies, right? Remember that? What's dependency mean?
Can't start one until the one before it finishes.
Yeah, so something's got to be finished before something can start, or something's got to start before something else can start. That's the whole concept of dependency. So this is, and somewhere hidden in here is the critical path. Now, why do I care about a critical path?
No float.
No float. What does float mean?
Give or take.
Say that again. That is a true statement, but float's a little bit more generic concept than that, right?
Has a direct impact on being able to complete on time.
No buffer.
Yeah, there's
No variation.
no variation. It's got to be done. If there's no float, then it's got to be done in that period. If there is float, what does that say?
That tells you how many days before you're on the critical path.
It's not on the critical path, and what else?
What the duration is for the delay that would put it on the critical path.
Yeah, and that's a good way to think of it. I have some extra time in there. If I burn that time, it moves on to the critical path. So it's not like those are tasks that I can ignore. It's just now I understand how much time I have, how much flexibility I have to be able to move that task around. To move that task around in time. Okay? So all of those are concepts we want to understand about scheduling and preparing a schedule, and now we have a schedule that we're going to measure against. So we have a baseline, and I'm going to start collecting data and start looking at, okay, we said we were going to do this between this period and that period. How are we doing? How are we progressing? There were a couple of concepts, and I hope he covered them. I suspect he did. Do you understand the relationship between duration and level of effort?
Yes.
Duration. Is everybody comfortable with that? You get that from, okay? That's an important concept in scheduling. And part of the reason is duration tells me what?
How many hours?
Length of time, when it starts and when it stops. What does level of effort tell me?
Total number of hours it takes.
Yeah, where my resources are, when they peak. Now, level of effort then might allow me to move people around, right? Or to put more people on a task to speed it up. Right? Not always possible, but sometimes it is possible to put more people on a task and speed the task up. You have a thought? Thought you were getting ready to tell me something, right? Okay? So understanding those two concepts and the relationship between them is an important scheduling concept, because we're going to talk about some things that we can do to speed up to speed up a schedule or to speed up an activity. If I tell you, and this is kind of a jump ahead question, but just kind of a thought exercise. If I tell you that this task is going to take 2 months and I'm going to use 2 people on it, but I also tell you that if we put 4 people on it, I can speed it up, why wouldn't I always do that? Cost and what else? Yeah, all resources doesn't always mean I'm going to be able to speed it up. But what else does speeding it up do? You guys, those are both true.
Maybe it doesn't change the actual critical
And if it doesn't, then that's an important thing to know, right? Okay, so I finished that 2 months early, but it wasn't on the critical path anyway, but I spent extra money, and then there's one more thing I want you to think about. If I make a decision to speed something up, what am I likely to also be increasing? Well, I'm definitely increasing costs, and you guys pointed that out, right? I'm definitely increasing costs during that time period. I may be increasing cost overall of the project. What else am I probably increasing? Risk, right? And that's an important thing for us to think about. Now, I may or may not impact quality. But the chances are, if I try to just throw more people on it, we put together, remember how we developed the schedule? We said we're going to get some subject matter experts together, we're going to look at past project experience, we're going to talk to people that know how to do these jobs, and we're going to determine that for that task, it's going to take 2 people 2 months, right? So at that point in time, we've got a pretty confident feeling that I can do that piece of work in that time with those resources. Now I'm going to come back to you and say, all right, I want you to put twice as many people on it and get it done in half the time. Does that cause you as a project manager to go, I can probably do that, but, right, is that where your mind went? I hope it did. Yeah, I could probably do that, but things are going to have to click just right, and so risk is probably going to go up. And so that's the thing I want us to think about as project managers. It might still be the right thing to do, but if it's not on the critical path and it doesn't really have to be done that quickly, then let's make sure we think that through and make a conscious decision to do that. Now, are there other situations where I might want to go ahead and put those resources on that task and accelerate it?
Maybe they're not being utilized, so.
Yeah, if I've got those people anyway, and they're, I'm going to say, sitting around, right? So hopefully nobody's ever sitting around. But if I've got those resources and I can utilize them, then as a project manager, I may make the decision to go ahead and get that task done and finished, because now I can use those resources on another task, even if they're not on the critical path.
Or mobilization costs.
Oh, good point. Mobilization and demobilization may be a cost that I want to just get it done. If I'm getting ready to go into a wet season, I might want to just get that task done because I've built in some concern about the weather for a certain period. So the point there is, you might increase the risk, you might have other impacts, but there still may be reasons. Okay, I want to go ahead and do this, and I want to accelerate the schedule. Let's look at controlling the schedule then. Controlling the schedule is determined with status of the project schedule and changes that we might want to make, determining if things have changed, monitoring changes as they occur, and then this is related to some IT stuff. You guys can read through that because I want to get to some points I want to make here on inputs, tools and techniques and outputs. You're going to read through that because you've already began to see that concept and you understand what we mean when we talk about process-based management. All right, so what kind of tools are we going to use? Trend analysis. Did you guys talk about performance index last time? Cost performance index, or okay, we're going to cover that. We have tools available to us that allow us to measure how much work are we getting done based on how much dollars are we spending. So if I have a cost performance index of 0.9, what is that saying to me?
Doing fairly well.
I'm doing fairly well. How much work am I getting done for every dollar I spend?
90%.
90 cents. Okay? Now, and as you said, that's actually not all of that bad. But what does that say when I get to the end of this project? Am I gonna be overspent?
Yes.
Am I gonna be late?
Yep.
And you just told me that's actually pretty good, right? Which I agree. So if I'm doing trend analysis, what is it I'm trying to figure out?
Where you are.
How late and overspent you'll be.
How late and overspent am I going to be, right? And honestly, that's the truthful answer. So that says we have to change something. If we don't always want to be late and overspent, we got to change something about the way we do work. Because if I'm a third of the way through the project and I'm performing at a 0.9 cost performance index and a 0.9 schedule performance index, am I likely to be late? Right? I've got to perform at a 1 point, gosh, I shouldn't do this in my mind. What?
Somewhere around 1.1.
Probably higher than that. If I'm a third of the way through the project, but let's say it's 1.1. What does that say I've got to do for the rest of the project?
Yeah, head and under budget.
I've got to get how much work done for every dollar I spend? $1.10 of work done for every, if it's 1.1. Okay, now we might be able to make 10%. We might be able to make up 10% because do you think you could convince people to work 44 hours in a week? 44 productive hours and not charge your project?
First part, yes.
Hypothetically speaking, right? Well, let's say it's 1.2. What are you asking them to do? So 48 hours for everybody per week for the rest of the project, and not spend your not charge your project. Probably not going to happen, right? So that's the concept behind trend analysis. So I want to understand, how am I doing? There's a cost performance index and a schedule performance index, and we'll talk about how to calculate those so that I understand how am I doing against schedule, how am I doing against budget, how are we as a team performing? So how early in the project do I want to start thinking about that?
Before it ever starts.
Immediately, day one. What unfortunately happens on the most projects, this is not me talking about, this is the Defense Logistics Agency has done some research on projects, and what happens is on most projects we win the project or we get it planned or we have the kickoff meeting and we say, thank goodness, now we got something we're going to be working on for the next 6 months, 10 months, year and a half, right? We got a path forward. So let's take a break here for a minute and let's calm down and let's relax a little bit, and then we'll really get on it next week. What did I just do?
An immediate delay.
I blew a week. Right? We're immediately behind, we're immediately overspent, and now we got to start figuring out how to make it up. We got to figure out a way to create a project culture that says, okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is important. We got a fixed scope, a fixed time, a fixed budget here. We got to figure out how to get this thing moving. Here's what we've committed to as a team. So if I'm saying that to my team, what would be my preferential position related to who produced the schedule and the estimate? That's horribly asked. The team that's doing the work, right? If I'm saying, here's our schedule and here's our estimate, let's go make this happen, I'm in a way better position if we produce that together than if I produced it, or worst case, a proposal team produced it, threw it over the fence and said, go make it happen. Good news, you're in charge. Better news, here's your team, randomly selected from a group of people who didn't have work. Go be successful. All right? Again, it's just, that's the world we live in, so if we can change the system or do something to improve the way we do it, it's all better for all of us. All right, critical path method. Tony talked about that last week, and right, hopefully. All right. And what that means, if you don't understand that, read that section in the PMBOK and in Kersner's book on the critical path method. That's what the majority of people use. The critical chain method is a really interesting technique, and there's some more people trying to figure out how to use that. Did Tony talk about this at all?
Yeah, sort of. He mentioned goal rat.
Okay, all right. There's a good book called Critical Chain that, and that wasn't on the reading list, was it? That Goldrat wrote, but essentially what he said there, or what the concept is, well, let me go back a step. Let's go back to the story I was just telling where I said the best of the worlds is that we're all in this together, and I'm going to let your team plan this work, develop the schedule, develop the estimate, and then we're going to get to work that job, right? So if I do that and I say to this random team, plan the work, give me a budget, give me a schedule, what am I most likely to know about the durations and the budgets for all those tasks?
Worst case.
Worst case, and what else is true about that? If this is the distribution, going back to your statistics class, we're going to talk about how long task A takes to occur. And this is the lowest estimate, and this is the highest estimate, and there's some distribution in there. We'll assume it's normal for talking. Where are we going to end up in all of those team estimates you just did?
Highest.
Somewhere over here, right? So all of our tasks are going to be estimated at that extreme. The budgets are going to be estimated at that extreme. From an organizational perspective, what's the problem with this?
You're not going to win the contract.
You're not going to win any work if all your tasks and all your schedules are over here. So what Goldrat, or the group that developed this critical chain methodology did is they said, what if we could figure out a way to take out the fluff, we'll call it that for right now, from all of these estimates, and we could pull them all back to over here somewhere, and then we'll produce a schedule based on this number instead of this number, on a task by task by task basis. And then we'll take all of this extra stuff, time, and we'll put it into buffers. And then we'll manage pulling that time out of the buffers based on the times that we go over. So we'll release this, then we'll release that from the buffer. And in general, we're going to end up with a more compressed schedule, and we're going to end up with projects that end earlier if they're managed this way. Okay? So if I tell you, now new organization, instead of doing this for your team, I'm going to ask you to give me your realistic estimate, and whatever you give me, I'm going to cut it by 15%, and I'm going to use these numbers. What are you going to do?
Add 15%.
You're going to add 15% to it, and then when I cut it, you're going to end up right back over here, right? So there's an element of trust that has to go into this if you're really going to do something like this, and an organization is really going to move to a critical chain methodology. Obviously, I'm giving you the shorthand introduction to this right now, right? There's much more to how critical chain works. It's a good system, and it could be valuable to organizations, but there are some other organizational cultural issues that go into trying to do something like this, because remember, we've talked about this multiple times. Fundamentally, we hire really smart, creative people, and then we're shocked when they do smart, creative stuff like, okay, if you're going to cut everything by 15%, I'll add 15% before I give it to you. Right? So critical chain, good tool, or a good system, a usable system, but there are some issues associated with it. right? And that's fundamentally what we're saying there. Earned value management, another thing that we're going to use to monitor, is lunch out there? Okay, you guys want to, let's stop and let you go ahead and get lunch, and then I'll draw a picture we can use to talk about earned value.